Now can we talk like human beings?
This feels pretty human to me.
I know what's on those drives you're stealing.
Look at you, brawn and brains.
You can't give Hammerhead the last drive. Once he has what he wants, your son will just be a loose end. Let me help you.
What are you thinking?
Stall him. Give us some time to find your son.
I missed you. Glad we're back together again.
Not like that.
Shame. Okay. I can probably give us a couple days, max.
So, about your son, is there a chance I'm...
Later. For now, let's find him. When he's safe, we can talk about that. Keep in touch, Spider.
MJ's gonna kill me.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 13 of PlayStation Pals, a video game podcast. I am your host, Nick, and I am joined by the screwball to my Spider-Man, John. Now, John, I'm going to need you to bring the energy today, because a little inside baseball here. We are recording on a Friday, and I am tired, and a showcase once again disappointed us, which we'll get into very shortly. So, John, are you ready to bring the energy?
Woo! Yeah, I'll bring it, buddy. I mean, I am full with. I have, I think, 3 donuts and a full large pizza in my belly right now. So I don't know if maybe I'll start off the podcast on a sugar high and just gradually, start winding down as you ramp up. But yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. It's been an interesting week, and I at least we got a couple cool things to talk about. I suppose going to try to stay positive. Going to try to not harp too much on these amazing showcases that companies keep gifting us. But yeah, man, I'm feeling okay. I'll try and do my best.
All right, I appreciate it. Maybe I'll be able to feed off or leech off your energy for this one.
Yeah.
But before we get into things, as I said last week, update to our DEF CON level, in which is the likelihood that we think a Sony showcase is happening. We did get no announcement this week, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, as far as nothing has changed as far as lean one way or the other, as far as like hints or signals that one might be coming.
Yeah, no, I thought that we had an agreement with the cosmos that when we talk about things happen for us. But it appears that this week we missed on that promise. So we thought at this point this week we would have some sort of confirmation, something pointing to a a confirmation of a Sony conference happening. But as of this time, no, we got nothing, man.
Okay, all right. So I think we're both comfortable with still being at a DEF CON 2. Just leaving it where it's at?
Yeah, I mean, I can't warrant any raising of the DEF CON levels with no news. I mean, I'm a pessimist by nature. That's how I am in most things in life. So, I'm more apt to 3 than I am DEF CON 1, because again, I'm a pessimist. I feel like, if we don't know yet, it's more likely that it's not happening than like Sony's just gonna announce it 2 days ahead of time. But I still think there's gonna be one. I still think we're going to get some information, just simply because there's too much out there that's unknown, and these little tiny drip rumors keep coming. There was something about Spider-Man footage potentially being shown soon. Now I believe that rumor was disconfirmed or what have you, but it's a smoke. If when you see smoke, there's fire type situation typically in the video game industry. As these things start to pop up, I mean, just in the past couple days, we've started to see a lot of people talk about this Amy Hennig game that we'll talk about later, and like while the rumors weren't 100% accurate, like we still got the confirmation that game exists today. So I think we'll see. I still think we'll see something.
Yeah, but just a matter of when. So hold on tight. I think again our first prediction date didn't come true, but our next prediction date, September 15th. Let's Let's hope.
You sure you want to attach your name to September 15th, Nick? I believe your boy here said September 15th like a while ago.
I said hour. I was saying.
I know. You're taking credit for me. That's what you're doing right now.
All right, fine. When it doesn't happen, you take the fall.
That's fine.
Send all your hate mail to PlayStationPalsPod@gmail.com. Address it to John, please.
Attention, John.
All right, let's move into the show. If you're just joining us, here's the format. John and I both bring 3 things to talk about. They can be a video game we're playing, it can be a news item, it can be an email to PlayStationPalsPod@gmail.com. It can be a tweet at PSPalsPod on Twitter. Any of those things, whatever we feel like talking about, whatever we're doing, we bring it and we talk about it. And I'm going to kick things off because it just happened. The Marvel and Disney video game showcase.
I feel like you need to put every single one of those words in quotes when you say that.
Blessing Eddie Jr., who we talked about when we were talking about this event, when it was announced, walked us very, very quickly through a bunch of games, and, well, big shocker, the event sucked. It was another horrible event that makes me question why even have an event. It was about 40 minutes long. There were maybe 10 or so games. We'll touch the big items right here and right now. Midnight Suns, that card strategy game from Firaxis that we talked about being delayed till fiscal 2022, is actually coming out this year. So it is coming December 2nd. That is the same day as Callisto Protocol. It's weird because it was announced for October, I believe, and then got that fiscal 2022 delay, and then now it's December. So I don't know what's going on with this game, but
well, it's at the very least, it's kind of refreshing to see a company or a team come out and like give us set our expectations on when to see this game, and for somebody to actually exceed it is at least a breath of fresh air.
Right.
I'm personally not really looking forward to this game. It just doesn't hit a lot of the genres that I like. But if you are, I think that's pretty great for those people. I'm sure that there was a great many people watching that showcase that were at least pumped about that, for sure.
Right. And then the other big news, as we talked about a few podcasts ago, was that Amy Hennig's Skydance Studio was going to reveal their very first game. And what we got was a CG trailer it looks like the game is set in World War II. It will star Captain America, Black Panther, and then 2 other smaller characters. It does not have a name. It does not have a date. And these are the kind of game announcements that can really just, again, I'm tired today. They can just shove these announcements right up their ass. Like, I'm just,
yes, they can.
Like, you don't have a title. You have nothing to show. Don't show your game. I that's where I'm at. Like, just don't. Like, this was a show ending a game, and it just doesn't tell us anything. It's just, we don't know what it is, how it plays, nothing about it. It's just these announcements need to stop.
I would love to see some inside baseball of this conference being put together, because it really seems to me, like yesterday was Disney Plus Day, right? And it's this big celebration within Disney. They're like, hey, look at all the stuff that we have on our platform. And it seems like this is tied to that, right? I know we have the 100 years of Disney coming up, so, they want to celebrate everything that they have. But it almost seems like somebody put this entire thing together with the Marvel Disney Games Showcase being a small piece of it. And then we kind of got closer to the date, and they're like, all right, guys, what do you got for us? And they're like, ooh, we don't have anything. And they're like, well, you have to give us something. And they're like, well, I mean, we can give you like a quick CG of like just random buildings in Paris during World War II. And it's like, I guess if that's what you got, that's what we're going with. Because, yeah, like you said, man, if you don't have a title, why? What are you doing? Like, and it's not even like there's nothing else to show. Like, I'm honestly a little bit surprised that, like, you know, obviously I don't know if that was the case on why we don't have a title for that game, but like, there's a big Star Wars sequel coming out early next year. Are you telling me that there's nothing you can show for that game to at least like give us a reason to like walk away from this showcase like amped for what's coming? Because at this point, what are you amped about? Are you amped about an unknown, untitled, undetermined game with Captain America? No. Are you excited about this game that we've known has existed for the past 12 months, you know, that actually is coming out this year? Probably not. So it's just like at that point, man, either pull the plug on the conference, you know, or you know, figure it out, Disney. You're one of the most powerful companies in the world with some of the most, you know, cherished IP around, and it's just, yeah, it's just unacceptable to produce a bunch of bag of turds like they did. I don't know, man. I don't know the reason for these, because obviously the bean counters and the people in charge of these companies are much smarter than you and I, right? They don't do anything unless if they see a substantial return of investment on it, whether that's monetarily, exposure on the media, things like that. So, and that's like the only thing that I can possibly think of is like, well, we might not get a monetary value back from this, but at least like it has people just speaking about Disney. And like, I don't know if that is the reason. Like, yeah, like you said, shove it up your ass, Disney. That's stupid.
Oh, all of them, all these shows.
Yeah.
Like there's two. Yeah. Like we've said over the last few weeks, which we're probably going to repeat next week when we recap Ubisoft Forward, is the same thing. Like, stop having all these events. It's just a waste. And it's like, I know, like all the sites, IGN, GameSpot, Kind of Funny, they all live stream every one of these conferences, so you get some kind of extra coverage on what you're going to show there, but nobody's excited about what you're showing at all. Like,
no,
because nothing's good.
It's depressing, man. You know, you and I, we both, I think, you know, anybody who listens to video game podcasts, right? You have your favorite groups of people and the critics and the analysts that you know like to follow and kind of see what they have to say. And I can't remember the last time that I've tuned into one of those and people are like, oh man, well that was great. You know, let's break this down. Let's get hyped. It's always, every single time it's like, well, you know, like we tuned into Kind of Funny right after, and it's like the only thing that I heard anybody say was like, well, the pace was good. And like, yeah, sure, the pace is good, but like that should be item number 65 on a list of why you have a conference, or like, you know, what was good about a conference. So really scraping the bottom of the barrel. And you know, once again, I'm just gonna save us, Jim Ryan, save us, Sony. We know you guys have stuff at least in the back burner that is gonna get us excited.
Well, so. Even in the opening scroll of like everything, all the stuff they were going to show or that's in their license, like Jedi Survivor was one of those games, and then it was not in the conference at all. Like, what happened?
Right. It almost, it seems disingenuous. It seems like, hey, like, you know, come watch this. You're going to want to see this, right? I know Cal Kestis is the back of his head, right? There's the red hair. And then to not see it, and you know, or even like I'm kind of a little annoyed about the Avatar game. Like, I don't think the Avatar really should have been here at all. I'm sure there was money passed around that it had to be, especially since we get the Ubisoft Forward tomorrow, which I'm sure we'll see more. But I don't know, like, I'm not an Avatar fan, but I am at least genuinely curious to see what that game looks like. It's going to have beautiful environments. Pandora's a crazy fucking place. And to just be like, they're making a game, and then I don't know, what did they spend 20 seconds on that? And it's just like,
maybe.
It's craziness. It's craziness.
Yeah, it's just, again, another show that asks, why was there a show? And it's just so you can package up a bunch of barely anything to show or games that don't look great. You just put them in one big meaty package, and then all the sites give you more coverage than they would if you were to release these things individually. You know, but...
Yeah, I mean, good pace, and as much as I don't really care for him, you know, the Blessing did a pretty decent job hosting. I much prefer the single host that comes in, says a couple things, and then he fucks off, as opposed to this weird, you know, back and forth thing that we get with, you know, these dual hosts that seem to be the fad of late. But yeah, I mean, is what it is. It is what it is.
It's really been the theme of this summer / now into fall we move. Nothing good to report. One day. All right, I'm done with it. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah, let's move on.
Stupid conferences.
So we did have some big, a pretty big piece of news in the PlayStation world. Although this is typically a bigger piece of news based on the team that they bought. But Sony did buy a new team. On August 29th, we got verification that Sony bought Savage Game Studios. Nick, have you ever played a Savage Game Studios game or heard of them?
Nope. This is the first time I'm hearing them.
I think that's probably going to be the going theme for most people. So I'm just going to start off by reading a little blog post here from Herman Holst, head of PlayStation Studios. It says, "Hello, PlayStation Nation. Today we announced that we have entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Savage Game Studios, a hugely talented team of creatives with many years of experience making some of the most popular mobile games enjoyed by players around the world. They were founded a few years ago with the goal of fearlessly exploring bold new ideas. We share their tireless ambition to innovate, along with a continued drive to expand our audience and bring PlayStation to more people than ever before, making them a perfect fit to join PlayStation Studios." So I don't have a ton to say about this. Mobile gaming is not my forte. It never has been. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, Nick. What's your gut reaction with this purchase? Like, where does your mind go?
I'm with you. I'm not much of a mobile gamer. I can be if the right game comes out there. I guess we just don't know. Again, there's nothing here, no games to show, no announcements of what they are working on to get excited about. But, Sony has a bunch of great IPs, and if they can make a great mobile game based on any of them, I would be down to check it out. I know Nintendo has been doing this a lot lately, and I believe they've been pretty hit or miss, but it's hard to predict what you're going to get out of this. And Sony has so many IPs that, if maybe maybe this is how Slide comes back, or Siphon Filter, they come back in some kind of mobile form that we can play. That could be interesting, but again, I don't know, but it's something Sony has to do. It's, mobile is a huge market, and there's a lot of money there to be made, and maybe they can tie it into some of their PlayStation 5 games in some way. Maybe some unlockables can be, or some kind of cross progression between both platforms can happen. That would be neat, but at this is just like, oh, okay. I mean, we didn't even think it was important enough to mention last week,
right?
So.
Yeah, I mean, with this purchase, I was actually listening to a podcast. I'll plug them right now because I'm sure they wouldn't mind extra viewership. I listen to Sacred Symbols, which is hosted by Yeah, they really need it with their 12,000 Patreon members. Hosted by Colin Moriarty, who has a long lineage in PlayStation. He used to work for IGN and things like that. But they kind of brought up a point on their show that just completely slipped my mind. I'm going to move on to the PlayStation blog thing because I have to think of. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
But one thing that I have seen. Oh, I'm sorry. I came back to me. So they mentioned that it seems like Sony right now is in the Tim Cook phase of Apple, and what they meant by that is they have a person at the helm who is not a creative. He is a business-oriented person who doesn't necessarily push the ball forward, but is good at maintaining a level of success and doing the business side of things. And I think we see that with Jim Ryan, especially with the purchases that Sony has made. They'd have a purchase acquisition style where they would work with a team for a long period of time. Maybe that team would make a second party game, and if it worked out, then Sony would come in and buy them. We saw that with Insomniac. They used to do Ratchet and Clank on a second party basis, and then Sony bought them. We saw that with Guerrilla and Sucker Punch and a lot of other teams. And as of recently, we've seen them buy Nixes, right? Nixes is this PC port team. They don't really make their own games, they port games. We saw them buy Firesprite. Again, they make games, but that's not really what they're known for. It's like they're known because they have a good, solid understanding of VR tech, which obviously Sony wants to get into. And then the big one, Bungie, right? They buy Bungie not to necessarily make them exclusive games, but because they have such a understanding of the live service space, because they've been doing it so long, that I see Sony making these purchases from a purely business standpoint. to make themselves more well-rounded. And I think you could probably tie this same purchase into that grouping where that there's not a lot that they have in the mobile space. Could they buy a team that is able to facilitate working with their other first-party teams to bring, like you said, the plethora of IPs or things that they have to the mobile market, because that is something that they've missed. And I think they see everything that they've done since they started putting their games on PC and how hugely valuable it is for them, that they were like, well, that was a piece of our pie that we just tapped right into. This is probably another piece of the pie that even if we can get a couple things on there, it's only going to be beneficial to us. You know, I don't think Savage is going to start making PS5 games or anything like that. Their primary thing is just to handle this space that Sony doesn't really exist in. And so I know we don't know a lot about it, but I think we can kind of bet that it's a purely business move, and I'm most curious to see like what type of, how do they expand into the mobile market? Because are they gonna do the Candy Crush, Raid Shadow Legends monetization plan where it's just a bunch of garbage, gross things? I don't think so. I think that would seem a little bit too predatory, even though that's how you can gain the most amount of money. But I also don't see them just releasing like a single player standalone game for iPhone that you buy for $5 and you never have to give them much more money. I bet it'll be somewhere in between. So we'll see. I think you're kind of that's a good point with cross progression or some way to, implement your phone into a game in a different way. It might not be exclusively just to make games, but yeah, I mean, I don't hate the purchase. It's nothing to really easily get excited about, though, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see what it really turns into.
Yeah, and people kind of overlook, like with this big Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard, acquisition, people are looking at, they're going to get Call of Duty, which we're going to talk about later, and they're going to get all the Blizzard games, but they're also going to get King. And if you don't know who King is, they are also another publisher that does games like Candy Crush and a bunch of other mobile games. So
good point.
Microsoft is probably looking to do the same. I'm sure once this acquisition is completed, you might see more mobile games come from Microsoft IPs. Sony's not the only one trying to do this. Microsoft's in the same boat, so they must see some kind of. Again, it's kind of obvious. Everyone has a phone, so if you can get a wildly successful game on the mobile market, that's a lot of money for you. And then if it ties into one of your other IPs, then, hey, I really like this Halo mobile game. Now I'm going to buy an Xbox Series X so I can play Halo Infinite, and vice versa,
Yeah.
So, Sony's not the only one doing this, so I'm curious to see what comes of this purchase, what their next game will be.
Yeah, I just had I had a thought. It would be, it'd be kind of cool, and I don't know if it's even possible, but if there was a way to kind of offload some aspects of PS5 games or, PlayStation games onto the phone, but maybe not the whole thing. Like specifically, I'm thinking in my head right now of Machine Strike from Horizon, right? Where it'd be kind of nice if you could log into your account, play games of Machine Strike, and then it somehow counts towards the progression of Horizon, like your PS5 version of the game, where it's like, okay, I don't want to do this on my. I want to, when I'm playing on my PS5, I don't want to spend part of my valuable night playing Machine Strike, whether it's for trophy reasons or not, or progression in the story. But if you could just kind of, twiddle away with that on your phone while you're taking a shit or whatever, it could be kind of, just more accessible ways to play is never a bad thing. But now we're just, kind of grasping at straws here. So that's all I got, Nick. I mean, unless we have anything to add with Savage games, we can definitely hit the next topic.
Nope. Let's move on. Let's move on to a topic that's gonna get me all energetic because I'm super excited because it involves one of my favorite games. We talked about it last week, Cyberpunk 2077. There's some news involving the game, and as in podcast tradition, in which we talk about something the week before, and then the next week a news item comes out about it. Cyberpunk 2077, the developers, CD Projekt Red, announced that there was going to be a Night City Wire, which is their little show that they have that they were doing a lot leading up to the game, and obviously with all the controversy kind of put it on the back burner, let not give all the angry people something to yell at. But I do think this cracks the code of why our predictions are talked about. It has to be one of the 6 things, John.
Okay.
if it's not one of the 6 things, then it doesn't come true. So we got to make sure sometimes to sneak in a thing about something we want to come true. So we might just have to make a thing like Gunstar Heroes next week so we can talk about it. So Treasure will then announce it.
Bloodborne 2. Let's go.
On September 6th, the Night City Wire came out. And this is all in the lead up to the Cyberpunk 2077 anime, Edge Runners, that is going to be on Netflix coming September 13th. Immediately, they released a new patch for the game. So if you had the game installed or if you download the game, it'll be version 1.6. And a lot of things come with it. They call it the Edge Runners update because a lot of it will tie in with the anime. And this is what we're getting. Cross progression is coming to the game. So if you have a save on any platform and you want to move it to any other platform, PlayStation to PC, PC back down to PlayStation, you can do that now. And then there were a lot of updates to the game itself. There's more gigs, more weapons. They have a wardrobe ability now, so you can kind of pick an outfit, and when you get another piece of gear, you'll just get the stats of that gear. It won't change your outfit, so your character doesn't always have to look goofy if you want to run the best gear in the game. You can now change your entire appearance, all over again if you want. So if you go to any Ripper dock in the game and you want to go from male to female, you want to increase your penis size, John, you're free to do so now. Anytime you want. That is something that I couldn't do in my playthrough.
That is true. That's why I selected the smallest penis so I could watch it grow.
Then there's some new hairstyles. There's a new arcade game called Road Trace. It's just silly. It's a Witcher 3 based runner. It's a fun little thing. You'll see it, John.
What's it called? I gotta look this up right now.
It's called Road Trace. It's funny. And there is a new side quest based on the anime. I went and played through all the new gigs and this side quest. They're all right. Just more of the same, more of the content. So there's not a lot there. Like it's not going to bring you back to the game. It's not a reason to yet. But that didn't stop CD Projekt Red from announcing a big reason to come back to the game. They announced a new expansion for it. It is called Phantom Liberty. It's coming next year. We retweeted the trailer for this. It's about a minute long. It looks amazing. Your character V is taking an oath to work for the new United States of America. It looks like it's going to be some kind of spy espionage thriller. And at the very end of the trailer, we get Keanu Reeves, who we're told is going to reprise his role as Johnny Silverhands in the expansion, where he mentions this is a bad idea. I'm excited, John.
Yeah.
I didn't with the controversy behind this game. Before it even launched, they mentioned it was going to have expansions. They mentioned it was going to have multiplayer, but with the troubled development and the lackluster sales, you didn't know what was going to happen. But knowing that we are getting this expansion, and they have confirmed as of this time this will be the only expansion for the game, at least we're getting something. At least I'm getting a reason to go back into this game that I love. What did you think of everything? I know you're in the game, so the 1.6 update is really just quality of life for you as you play through it, because there are a bunch of bug fixes. But and you're still in the game, so I don't know how high you would be on an expansion at this point until you beat it. But do you have any thoughts on all this news?
No, I mean, I think it's great that it's coming out. I honestly haven't even watched the trailer for it yet, because I'm trying to just focus on the main game of Cyberpunk as it is. But I think, as much flack as this game has gotten, I still would probably argue that there is not a better team out there in producing DLC than Cyber or CD Projekt Red, and that's just from one game's experience. The quality that, and I always get this wrong, so correct me, Nick. Is Hearts of Stone and Blood and Fire or something?
Heart of Stone and Blood and Wine. Or the
Heart
two
of Stone and Blood and
expansions for
Wine, the
Witcher 3.
two expansions for Witcher. Like, it's almost unanimous that these are two of the greatest DLCs that ever been made. I believe Blood and Wine is 30 hours long, which is just bananas for a DLC package. So you can if you can kind of trace that to Cyberpunk, you can definitely expect this to be a meaty expansion. I would not expect anything short of 10 hours, let alone maybe even 20. They're going to put a lot of effort into it. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy for fans of the game. It's more reason to go back. But yeah, I mean, I think I need to just see more of the original game itself to maybe kind of dissect it a little bit more, because I still kind of don't even really know what's going on narratively in my game. I'm about 7 or 8 hours in right now. I've had a lot of family time in the last week or so. That silly family. So hoping maybe this weekend I'll be able to jump into it a little bit more. But sure. I know that's been something you've been waiting on. So I want my Nicky boy to be happy, man. And there we go.
Yeah, I did. I did predict this to be a Gamescom, and I was bummed that it wasn't there at all. So to get it now is just refreshing. Again, no date, no price, nothing much to know about it right now. But yeah, as you had mentioned, like, their expansions deserve the name expansion, like because it's a meaty chunk of the game, and very few DLCs feel like that. Even Spider-Man, which we heard at the beginning of this podcast, that we heard a clip of, that's DLC, and The City That Never Sleeps. And John, you played them. They're okay, but
yeah.
There's not. I would never say if someone beats Spider-Man to go and play them. It's like, well, if you really, really want to play more Spider-Man and see some new characters, go ahead.
It's a notable step down from the main game, because all that does is it basically takes the enemies you've already been fighting, adds a new mechanic to make them way more annoying, whether it's a energy shield that you can't punch, or whether it's a dumb rocket launcher that, whatever, you know what I mean. That's typically what you see with stuff. You're going to see a lot of reused environments with the same enemy types that maybe have some, beefed up version of themselves. But I would guarantee Cyberpunk's going to create a brand new environment to explore, with brand new characters, with brand new weapons, with brand new costumes, and really give that, like, really make it feel like you're getting your 20, 30, 40, whatever it costs, money's worth out of it. So yeah.
So very excited for that. And again, Cyberpunk is not going anywhere. As John plays through it, we'll be talking about it. And then as this comes out, I will definitely be playing it. So you will be hearing more about it next year. All right, that's my piece. That injected a little bit of energy into me.
Nice. I can hear it.
Some good news finally on the gaming front. So let's switch to a game that I am shocked how highly I hold this game dear. And now, this is a game that came out in 2018. I've beaten it before, but it is included on the PlayStation Extra list, so I decided to jump back in just to see if I remembered as fondly as I did. Because playing through it the first time, I remember liking it, not loving it, and this time I'm loving it. And that game is The Messenger. Messenger, done by Sabotage Studios. This was their first game ever, so that's always obviously a very exciting thing to see, as a new team that comes on the scene and nails something. And what this game is it's a retro style 8-bit side-scrolling action platformer, right? If you've played Ninja Gaiden, that is what this game is. It wears Ninja Gaiden on its sleeve, but what it does in, like, the small things and the finer things are just nailed to perfection in this game. So the main mechanic that kind of sets this game apart is you kind of have this air jump ability, where if you are in the air and you hit something with your sword, anything that can be hit, except for like a wall, whether it's a lamp, like think of Castlevania, little lamps or candles that you can hit that drop things, or whether it's enemy projectiles, enemies themselves, it gives you another jump. So basically you can create this awesome flow of movement throughout a level, where you're kind of jumping around, you're hitting enemies, you're jumping here and there. You have a glide ability, so you're kind of gliding around, jumping to this projectile, getting up to secret areas that you kind of have to time the projectiles perfectly, or whatever the case, where it really is just a lot of fun to just go through a level from start to finish and just see how well and how flowy you can kind of make everything.
And that's just from the gameplay standpoint. This game has phenomenal music. It's some of the best music I've heard in a game in a long, long time, especially for a 8-bit side-scrolling kind of game. It has that old school retro, MIDI feeling to it, where it's a lot of like chibi tunes and things like that, but kind of flared up and done in an awesome way. And its attention to detail is great. Like, you'll go through a level, and if the music's bumping in the background, then your character dives underwater, the music immediately shifts into like if the music was being played underwater, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. It's just like a minor little touch that kind of gets you a little bit more into it. But one thing that this game does that's really kind of makes you, I don't know if it's a jaw-dropping moment, but it's like a holy fuck moment, is like halfway through this game, when you think you're about to beat this game, it pulls a 180 and it basically resets itself and becomes a 16-bit game, and then it becomes a Metroidvania. So, like I said, in the first half of the game, you're going just level to level, Castlevania Ninja Gaiden style. And then you basically have the ability to go back and forth on the map. It all of a sudden gives you one of those like cube style maps, where you see all the squares, so the room to room to room. You've changed into a 16-bit style, so your character looks the same, but everything seems a little bit nicer. The colors are brighter. The music even changes. It changes from 8-bit music to 16-bit music. And then, so you're like, oh wow, that's so cool that they put the care and effort into this, because I've heard from many, many people that pixel art is some of the hardest to pull off. It's harder than, doing Unreal 5 and things like that. So the team really was able to flex what they were able to do artistically with that Switch. But then they start playing around with this Switch, from a gameplay standpoint, where there's these little portals throughout the world that have you go back and forth immediately between the two, where, in the 8-bit world, there's a wall that's blocked off. In the 16-bit world, that wall's open, so you can kind of bounce back and forth. And, and like the music's changing all the time, the aesthetics of everything's changing all the time. So it really, keeps you into the game and just makes you want to keep playing, because it's coupled with the fact that it is so fun to move around too. So I highly encourage people, if you are a fan of retro-style games, if you played SNES, Genesis games back in the day, I think this game's going to be for you. And it's not to mention, also, the writing in this game is genuinely funny. There's a character that you kind of consistently go back to. He's kind of, think like a shopkeeper, but he's very tongue-in-cheek. He breaks the fourth wall every once in a while. And, we've all sat through games where like you can tell that the writers are trying to be funny and just nothing lands. And this one, it's there's no voice acting, so you're reading everything and everything's hilarious. So it's one of those games, much like a Hades, a Celeste. If we were ever to do a perfect games thing, I would think about it. I don't know if I'd quite go there, but I highly, highly encourage anybody who is into old style games, especially if you have PlayStation Extra, because it is free there. Nick, you really should play this game. It's got an 86 on Metacritic. People really, really liked it. Destructoid gave it a 10 out of 10. But just wanted to shine a little light on this slow news week, and pull out a game that I think, a lot of people may have missed, that is definitely deserving of second look. So yeah, you play that shit, Nick. It's not a question. You do it.
So
right?
I have played this. Similar to John's experience with Game Pass, I have an Xbox One, and I signed up for Game Pass because it was like $1 for a month, and I was one of the many games that I downloaded, and I did get attached to it. I didn't play it enough to get to that twist, the 16-bit twist, but it was one of the games that I played more of than any other. So I definitely know it's a good game, and yes, hopefully in the next month, 2 months, as long as all these extra games aren't straight fire, as we talked about last week.
Yeah.
I should probably go back to this game, because I do remember really enjoying it. So the controls feel good on PlayStation, on PS5?
Oh, so good. It feels so good. I mean, yeah, and I think they did a good job, whether you want to use the analog stick or the D-pad. I encourage the D-pad again, it's just that style game. But no, very, 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 very tight controls. And one last note about this team, like I mentioned, Sabotage, this was their first game. If you play this game, or even if you don't, I also encourage everybody to check out the next game that they're making. They're making a game called Sea of Stars, which if this is a direct ripoff of Ninja Gaiden, which it is, Sea of Stars is a direct ripoff of Chrono Trigger, which I have never beaten, but I know how cherished that game is amongst a lot of people. But again, it's got the absolutely gorgeous pixel art, and if they can nail the gameplay aspects of that game too, I think that's going to be something special. So,
cool.
Sabotage Games, everybody.
All right, yeah, definitely check them out. Very good indie developer, as we've seen.
Yes.
All right, so moving on, I wanted to get into the future of Call of Duty on PlayStation. It has kind of been the discussion this week, as I will get into. But I guess before we get into that, John, I know you just talked for a bit, but if you could briefly tell me what's your thoughts on Call of Duty as a franchise right now?
Okay, interesting question.
If you need time to think, I can go first, but.
No, I've lived around Call of Duty for more than half of my life now, so definitely have a lot of thoughts on it. Just so I guess really quickly, my backstory with Call of Duty, I got Modern Warfare 4, which I think was a lot of people's. That was like Call of Duty's coming out game, and I loved him. Played him out in college. Lots of time spent with my best friends, just doing multiplayer matches and things. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. No game I think maybe to this day feels as good as just a shooter. They've nailed the mechanics, but I say all that to kind of, I don't know if it's me, because I haven't played Call of Duty consistently since college, because I found that if I buy it myself and I try to get into multiplayer, I just get mad. I don't have a lot of I guess emotional self-control. I don't know, but the Call of Duty, it's waning, man. I mean, if we think back on the last couple of releases, Vanguard, I think, was historically one of the worst sellers. Like it sold like 50% less than Black Ops Cold War did, and that was a release that came out with a new generation of consoles, so it's probably going to see a little bit of a bump there. But Call of Duty is not played by people who are looking for the best gaming experience out there. I feel like at this point, Call of Duty is played by people because they play Call of Duty. Like, that's just what they know. That's what they are comfortable with. They don't want a different experience. So while no doubt, every year a Call of Duty game comes out, it has a chance to be the best-selling game of the year. And I'm pretty sure something like 15 of the last 17 years that has been the case. But I do see a little bit of an overvaluing of Call of Duty as a brand, because I think if another first-person shooter was able to break onto the scene and really blow people's hair back, I think you would start to see a slow shift. It wouldn't be immediate. It wouldn't be something that people would immediately let go of Call of Duty. But maybe like a World of Warcraft style Final Fantasy 14 thing, where it's just like it's going to slowly eat away at it. And I'm curious to see if 20 years from now, if Microsoft regrets the purchase of Activision Blizzard. But I don't think Call of Duty is what it was. It's still undeniably one of the biggest franchises in the world, but it's due for some innovation. It's getting a little stale.
That was the brief statement, huh?
Shut up.
All right.
Yeah, I had to gather my 10 minutes of thoughts.
I'll frame it this way, because again, if Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard, the future of Call of Duty on PlayStation is up in the air. Would you be bummed if Call of Duty was no longer on PlayStation? I know you have an Xbox, so your ability to play the game is not gone. But if you weren't able to play this on your preferred platform anymore, would you be bummed?
No, personally, no.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with the franchise. When you have a franchise that's on its 19th, it has released 19 times as of this recording. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in October will be its 20th release, which is just plain insanity. And I'm with you, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was just like watershed moments. I believe Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was the last time I stood in line outside of a GameStop for a midnight launch. And I think my connection to that franchise it was mostly social. I mean, those games played incredibly. They were fun to play, but it was just such a social event. You know, you would get in a party, you play the games all night, and that would be your weekends. So many weekends, so much time spent on this franchise. But it's very hard for me to retain playing any game for an extended period of time. So I think Modern Warfare 3, I think I beat and played a little bit of multiplayer, and then I was gone, and I haven't been back since. So
Right.
Same boat. If I know it hurts PlayStation a lot for the franchise not to be around anymore, but personally I could care less, and I'm curious as to what the future is, whether with Microsoft or not. But moving on to the topic, because Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan have been talking about it this week, because again, if Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard, the future of this franchise that I'm sure has made Sony so much money in royalties and all the expansions and map packs and all the cosmetics that Warzone brings, that will it be here? So Bloomberg earlier in January reported that there's a deal for at least the next 3 games to be on the PlayStation platform. So that includes this year's Modern Warfare 2, and then the next 2 games, which one is supposed to be the sequel to Warzone, and then whatever the next, I believe the Treyarch Call of Duty that's coming. But as this acquisition has been taking place, Phil Spencer keeps getting asked about this, because this is kind of the big franchise. This is, what is going to happen to Call of Duty once this acquisition completes? And Phil Spencer, talking to The Verge, says that, hey, they're committed to keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation for several more years. So, after saying that, Jim Ryan, President's chief, this is what he said in response to that. He says, Microsoft has only offered for Call of Duty to remain on PlayStation for 3 years after the current agreement between Activision and Sony ends. After almost 20 years of Call of Duty on PlayStation, their proposal was inadequate on many levels and failed to take account of the impact on our gamers. We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality Call of Duty experience, and Microsoft's proposal undermines this principle. So people's thought is that Sony's deal is going to end in the next 2 years, 2024, and that if you take Phil Spencer on his word, several years, let's say 3 years, so after 2027, it is possible that Call of Duty just disappears off PlayStation. I will mention that Microsoft also did buy Minecraft and still supports Minecraft on Sony platforms. So they do have a kind of a precedence for, not taking away franchises from Sony that they own. But I guess, John, how do you think this is going to shake out? I know we're not economists, and this is all pure speculation. This is all out from a gut feeling. Is where do you see, let's say by 2030, where is, and this deal goes through, of course. If the deal doesn't go through, then this is all a moot point. But if this Activision Blizzard acquisition goes through, where do you see Call of Duty in 2030?
My balls tell me that it's probably going to be Xbox exclusive. If I were to guess. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm sure I'm going to forget a bunch and later be like, damn it, I should have said that. But I think it was kind of good that you framed the question off the top here, Nick, the way you did. Is like, Call of Duty is a declining franchise. I actually pulled up while you were talking, Nick, just the best-selling Call of Duties out there, and number one out there is Black Ops with 30.71 million. I'm sorry, that's 30.72 million. And then Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, Ghosts, Black Ops 3, Modern Warfare 2. Those are the top 6, and all of those games. That's like the early 2010s period when Call of Duty was on top of the fucking world, man. And then I kind of keep going down the list, and until I see one that's like in one of the recent ones, you got Call of Duty World War II at 19 million. While 19 million is, there are developers out there that would, fucking give their legs and arms for those kind of sales. That's still, 33% drop off from what they once were, and it gets worse and worse. That's just one of the better selling recent ones. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's going to be as big of a blow for PlayStation people as we think it is. Now, what does Sony do to, counter that? Because they're going to have to. I think, what Sony's answer is they're kind of preparing for it right now. I don't know if they know behind scenes if it is actually going to be pulled or not, or if maybe they're gonna actually bring it to PlayStation. At this point, I don't trust Phil Spencer. I know he is seems to be the golden boy of the video game world right now, especially on the Microsoft side. It's we love Uncle Phil. He's so nice. He wants games for everyone, but it just seems like he talks out of both sides of his mouth. If he's in a forward-facing position, where he's hosting a conference, or if he's making a post, to the public, he gets all lovey-dovey and we want games for everybody. That's their big thing is we want games for everybody. And I'm trying not to put on my PlayStation fanboy hat as much as possible right now, because I understand PlayStation has been the worst offender of that lately. They have a lot of agreements out there, whether it's with Square Enix for Final Fantasy VII Remake or whatever they have to make, third-party games exclusive to their platform. But that's, say what you want. Final Fantasy VII Remake is not Call of Duty. So, there is a little bit of a difference there, but I say fuck it, man. I say fuck them. If they want to keep Call of Duty, let them keep it. I think Sony is the publisher out there that is able to make a competent competitor of a first-person shooter. They are working with Deviation Games, which was founded by two members of the original Call of Duty, that primetime Call of Duty time. Right, Treyarch. Yeah, I think so. They made the original Black Ops, which shocker on my list I just read is the best-selling Call of Duty game of all time. So they obviously know what it takes. And, maybe that's Sony's plan all along is we're going to get this team to get us our long-needed first-person shooter, first-party game, because that is maybe the biggest black hole in their portfolio. So I say fuck it, let them take it. I unless if they're going to innovate that franchise to oblivion, which again, not trying to throw shade, Xbox doesn't innovate. That's not what they do. I think it's just you're just going to continue to see diminishing returns until either you have a dedicated smaller fan base, and by small for Call of Duty standards, I mean 10 to 15 million. I don't think it'll ever really get below that. You're always going to have dedicated people, but it's at the end of the day, people, it's just another first-person shooter that has very specific comfort things that you like, right? It's you like the way that the shooting feels, you like the guns, you like the way that drops happen, but it's not. I play a lot of video games, man. It's not that good. All right, I'm just gonna say it. It's, that might be a hot take. It's not that good of a game. Titanfall 2 is better. There's better first-person shooters out there. So, yeah, I would expect to see it on. I kind of at this point, man. I used to be in the camp that there's no way they're gonna pull it from PlayStation, but I think Phil is trying to lay the groundwork now that that's what they want to do if they have the ability to do it.
Right, and again, this acquisition is being reviewed, by all these government agencies, around the world. So he's got to say this, he's not going to say anything else right now. But again, if Microsoft does purchase Activision Blizzard and Call of Duty, Call of Duty will become a Game Pass franchise. So I don't think they're the sales of the game. I don't think they're concerned with diminishing returns, whatever. That's not what we're concerned about. But we are concerned that people are going to subscribe to Game Pass and Call of Duty's multiplayer with its seasons and its season passes and all that fit perfectly well into a Game Pass subscription service, because now I'm just going to say subscribe because I got to play my Call of Duty on there. I don't buy the games anymore. I just subscribe to this service, and a game that I paid $60 a year, I'm paying even more, but I'm also getting all the other games. So.
Well, that's honestly the main reason that I am a little shocked that they want to even pull it from PlayStation, because it might have even been today or yesterday they just released basically the percentages that all the big companies gave Activision for their revenue. Sony in 2020 was number one with 22%, followed by Apple and Google at 17%, and then Microsoft fourth at 11%. And Apple and Google actually overtook Sony in 2021 to be Activision Blizzard's number one, but Microsoft even fell below double digits. So like that's a huge chunk to just give up. And I would have thought that the enticement of saying that these games are on Game Pass would have been at least enough of a leg up to try and get people into there while retaining the revenue that they could have made from PlayStation. Because I don't think pulling Call of Duty from PlayStation is going to get. I just feel like it wouldn't be enough to get people to choose an Xbox over PlayStation in this day and age. Maybe 10 years ago, but I don't think it is today. So why not have your cake and eat it too? But I guess it weakens PlayStation at the very least, and that might just be more valuable than the money that would come in from PlayStation. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all speculation. Personally, I think that they'll just leave the Battle Royale version, the Warzone or Warzone 2, Warzone 3, whatever that is. I think that'll always just be on PlayStation because it's just another, more platforms. It increases your player base. That's more bodies in these giant lobbies and that are only going to get bigger as the technology increases. So why not have Warzone on every platform just with crossplay? And then, all the single player Call of Duty games and then the multiplayer that's attached to that after this deal or if Phil Spencer is true on his promise, after that by 2030, our speculative date is that all those single player games, Modern Warfare 4, 5, 6, whatever, will all just be on Xbox. That is my thought on this.
I could see that.
So, but it'll be interesting. It's something to watch. Again, this is all based if this acquisition goes through, and that has not happened yet. So we'll just keep an eye on it. But it's nice to see Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan.
I think they should just do a celebrity deathmatch style brawl.
And winner gets Call of Duty.
yeah. Although I don't know, I think it looks like Phil Spencer probably had, or rather Jim Ryan has 20 years on Phil Spencer. So yeah, maybe not.
All right. Well, we'll put a pin in that. That'll definitely be coming up in the future. As again, one of their games is coming out in a month from now. So. Yep. We'll be talking Call of Duty. So, all right, moving on, John. What is our final topic? What are you closing out with?
Another short one, in a pretty dry week. But I wanted to talk about one of the PlayStation Essential games that we got this month, and that's Toem or Toem. So first off, right off the bat, I hate this name. I never know how to say it, so I'm just going to say that right now because it's
I was just going to ask you which is correct.
It's a dumb name, all right? I've played, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours maybe, and at no point in this game have I seen a character named Toem, a city named Toem, or it's like, just pick a different name, man. It's silly. But, so, I jumped into this, and just wanted to at least check it out. Admittedly, first thing I did was Toem Trophy Guide and saw that, it's a quick one. It's a quick platinum. So, if it's halfway decent.
Dog.
I know. Don't act like you didn't too. So I wanted to at least check it out and see what it was about. If it's a short, nice indie experience, maybe it's something I would want to see through. And at this point, I'm kind of up in the air about that statement. I think it has a decent amount of things going for it. It's very, very cute. It's despite being black and white, it has a pretty unique art style. The art style shines through, and you can get the vibe that it is a very small, intimate game. I think it utilizes the DualSense pretty nicely. When the game starts, you can tell immediately it's got a pretty decent haptic feedback system. And obviously it's a camera picture-taking game, so you get that slight resistance on the trigger when you pull that down to take a picture, which is kind of nice, and your controller vibrates in a little way like that you would kind of expect it to do. And the music's really nice, or at least the audio in general, right? It's like, I think when I booted up the game, I saw like one of those splash screens that you typically see, developer and any of those, that middleware that gets added into a game. And one of them was legitimately like an audio design team. So I was like, okay, so off the bat, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pay attention to the audio in this because somebody dedicated themselves to it. And I think they did a pretty good job. Like you start the game in what I can only assume is your room, and your TV is on and it's staticky. I didn't notice the static when the game loaded in because it was already going, but you can go over to the TV, interact with it, and turn it off, and like it turned it off in my headphones. I have the Pulse 3D headphones, so when I turned it off, it's like, oh man, everything went silent. And like I turned it back on, and it just felt realistic and authentic. So the audio capture is pretty great. But when it comes to the actual gameplay itself, you're kind of wandering around this town, going from map to map. Think of any type of Metroidvania where you can kind of see the doors off the side of the screen that stick out like little tabs, right, that you can kind of walk into and then hit X and you're going to transition to the next screen. But yeah, all you're really doing, man, is kind of going from screen to screen. Do you see anything moving? Are there any little critters scurrying around or any plants? Then take a picture of that, and then you kind of rinse and repeat. But there's not really a good way. There's no map. There's no good way to kind of keep track of what you're doing. If you are going for a platinum or something like that in this game, you have to fill out the compendium, which is I think it's like 54 different things you need to take pictures of. And as far as I can tell thus far in the game, again, I'm not done with it, but I feel like I would have reached the point where they would have talked about it. There's really no good way to keep track of this stuff or to know what you're missing or know where the things are. It's just like, oh, well, you didn't notice on this one screen that in the corner there's butterflies flying around this tiny little plant. It's like, all right, man, like it just seems kind of bad game design. But that's not to say the game is without merits. I think it's a cute little game. If you have kids, maybe, if somebody who's into photography, or you have a spouse or a girlfriend who's maybe into smaller, easy to control. There's obviously not any twitchy movements or anything like that. Could be a short little 3 to 5 hours of enjoyment. It's got a 79 on OpenCritic. I think that's pretty accurate. It might be a little bit lower than that to me, but I can definitely see certain aspects of the game that people have latched onto. And that's not a bad thing. I know you played a little bit of it, Nick. What's your experience with it so far?
Do you like the art style?
I kind of do. I mean, I know it's bubbly and it's meant to be. We're these little creatures that act like humans. But I don't know. I've always had a soft spot for black and white things, first of all, and. Okay. Yeah, and I don't know. It knows what it is, right? It's not trying to do anything crazy. And I feel like if the game was colorized, it would take away some of the charm for me personally. So yeah, I don't mind it.
Okay. Yeah, I've only played like maybe an hour of it, and I'm up in the air on whether I'll play. I'll check it out more, but who knows if I'll finish it. But yeah, the art style, I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not a big fan of the black and white. I think it just makes things more difficult to spot, as you mentioned, when you're trying to find things. And as you mentioned, like you go into like these isometric rooms, and there's weird things in the room, and you're taking pictures of them, and there's like no like feedback. Like some things there's feedback, like, oh, this was a bug and it's in your catalog now. But there's like this big like angry, it looked like a porcupine on top of a building, and he would get angry when I pointed the camera at him, and then he would run away. But I took a picture of him, but I didn't know if did I get it? Did I get the shot?
He's a side quest later. You meet another porcupine. Right. Who's like, I need my brothers.
Is that what he is? Is he a porcupine?
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I met that guy, and again, he was like, oh, there's one of my brothers is here, and I'm like, I thought I took a picture of that one. Did I not? Did it not register?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Again, it's a free game. I'm checking it out.
It's free. Check it out. Yeah, I mean, it's no harm, no foul, but it's just one of those, like, I'm sure it was made by a very, very, probably like 3 to 5 man team, and it's great, but it's just like those little, like, how could you not think, like, okay, if I walk into a room, literally all you need is something in the top right that says like 0/X amount of things in that screen. So it's like, okay, I know that on this screen I have 7 of 8. Let me find it, so that because like, again, with no map, with no indication of where you need to go, you could just be wandering around forever, man, and that's no fun. Right. So I don't know. I'll probably stick with it until I decide, it's really not worth my time, or I want to, shove a platinum in your face. But it's okay. It's okay.
I'm tired, John. I'm not in the mood for your platinum smack talking.
I know, I'm wearing you down, man. I can tell. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore, you idiots.
All right. Well, that's 6 things. We are done. I did forget to mention at the start that PlayStation firmware update, that beta we talked about all the way back in episode 7, that's live now. So if you have a PlayStation 5 and you want to play in that 1440p or any of the other features we discussed all the way back in episode 7, those are live. Did you play around with any of it, John?
No, I haven't played around with it. I mean, I did. The only thing I saw was there was an article that somebody said there was like a hidden trophy feature where you can kind of go in now and basically, instead of having to go into all the hidden trophies and hit X and then hit square to like see what it is, you can literally just like select to de-hide everything, which for me personally I would do because like I'm not that not that spoiler sensitive. Mm-hmm. And it's that level of quality of life stuff. The 1440p is going to be great for very specific people, but overall, I mean it's pretty.
Yeah, I did notice when I went to play Cyberpunk to play this update that I had play game and then like start activity were right next to each other. Yeah. So that is something new that it'll jump you right into the activity.
Yeah, and that's good. They need to figure out a way, 2 years in now, to steer people into like the extra features that the console has that I feel like a lot of people aren't using. I mean, if you and I aren't using activity cards, who the hell is?
Yeah, that is very true. Well, all right. We are going to leave you on more Cyberpunk because I just can't get enough. With this news and all, but this time we're going to go from original music to licensed music, even though it is a licensed song made specifically for this game, and it is from a band that both me and John enjoy immensely. It is called No Save Point. It's by Run the Jewels and Yankee and the Brave. It is a great song. It has some, Night City specific lyrics in it. It's really good. It's a great song.
And everybody, if you enjoy this, listen to all 4 of the Run the Jewels albums. They're all great.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
All right. Do we have anything to tease for next week? We will be talking that Ubisoft Forward. I'm sure this will be the one that breaks the streak of bad conferences. I just know it.
Yeah, Skull and Bones, right? Skull and Bones is just gonna blow our hair back. No, nothing to tease. I think one of us might start Last of Us. That's kind of like a game I think that we're both kind of thinking of getting into, but we'll see.
Right. And I'll hand this to Ubisoft. Like usually their conferences have lots of gameplay and they always end on a game that we didn't know about, even though all of it is leaked by now.
Yeah, it's probably Mirage or
yeah. It'll be Assassin's Creed something, one of the multiple games they have planned in that franchise. But we will bring to you all the interesting things about it next week, or just bitch and complain about it like we've been all the other ones. So
that one. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, most likely that one. But all right. We will see you next week again with 6 more things or a Sony showcase again. But we will let you know. So enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening. And goodbye, guys.
R.I.P. Queen Liz. We love you.
Aww.
Aww. Bye.
Bye-bye.
My drugs, so the penis unplugged. When the laws of entropy touch, you better dread the judge. Wiser men than us been crushed to find dust. When a fortune cookie dummy unfucked, I just shrug. A note like a broken electrical pole song. But a done, for the scum of the circuitry on the run. Haven't seen the sun with the naked eye much. So the neon is my god and it shine on the numb. Hop up with the bike uncut, okay, ready. Work ain't been too steady, I'm headed for something heavy. If you got the credits, I'll pull the crime of the century. Morality's only a memory when belly's empty. Swine, get they high mind, focus on taking mine. Get in line, swine, you won't deny me my piece of pie. Any fucker in this broke future that they design, don't comply. I'll supply a deletion, the end is nigh.
I used to pray to God, but I think he took a vacation. Cause now the state of Cali is ran by these corporations. The skyscrapers shallow, the homeless, the population. The degradation they face, which should be an abomination. They body parts are stolen and sold to the richest patient. And we the mercenaries at war with the active agent. The legislators that work for the sadists that kill the babies would die in the back of a bullet built on Mercedes. Just to serve, murder them and the chauffeur. With humble herb, let my brain exit the herb. That's righteous, huh? Cyberpunk, holding a pump. Keanu Reeves, cyber arm under my sleeve. I blast them all, watch them fall like autumn leaves. Damn it, I can't leave. Night City keep calling me. God damn it, I'm a G. And this fuck shit is all it needs. Life a funky bitch, but this bitch ain't divorcing me.